RestoMold.
Right, hello and welcome to another update. So it's been a couple of weeks since we've last sort of recorded anything, sort of been a bit busy. Rob got married and I've got my MX5 finished, so as you can see we've had a bit of a clear out in here, sort of moved the van up a bit, got a bit more space to do bits. It's not under the low ceiling anymore, which means we can get it up a bit higher, which is sort of very handy. So today we're going to sort of start looking at this sort of big old rust hole in the engine bay here, which we're going to sort out, sort of courtesy of some extra fingers there. And also you can see it's nice and shiny where Rob's given it a nice pre-bath in power steering fluid this morning. So we need to sort of repair the top section and the lower cross member, which is all rusty. You've got the inner arch here again, which is going to have to do a bit on this. I can't seem to find a panel for this, so this is going to be fabricated. And then we touched this up a few years ago, but we never really sorted it, so you can see there's rust in the inner arch goes behind it, so we'll be taking this section out and sorting that out. I mean, generally for a sort of an early 94 van, it's the arch tub is generally pretty clean in there. This is the sort of cross bottom of the outrigger that we've got to sort here. So we've got to replace the outrigger, replace that top panel and all this bit here. What we've got, so the original wing was shot around the bottom. You can sort of see it there, usual place, pretty much all go there. So we've got some panels as well, got a new wing. What we're going to do with this being an early van, the wings are welded on, sort of spot welded in various places. What we did with the other side is convert them to sort of bolt on, so we put rib nuts in and basically make it easier so we can get the wing off if we need it to, but it still fits. So we've also got,
and more importantly, clean behind it.
Yeah,
because they fill up with leaves and they will.
Yeah, well, we were cleaning up we were sweeping up earlier, the amount of crap that came out of the wings was a big old mountain of it. So right, so panel wise we've got the wing, which I'm not too sure what we're going to do yet. Those the aftermarket wings, they fit okay, but the panel gaps towards the top are always a bit iffy, so I haven't decided yet whether we're just going to get that on or just cut a section out and repair that one because it's good at the top. Don't know yet, depends on time and how much effort I can be bothered to put into it. So we've got the sort of front arch section there, sort of goes there. We've got the replacement outrigger here, which I don't know if I'm going to go all the way back to the chassis leg. Once I started cutting it open and had a look, we'll see how far rotten it is. Sort of generally sort of panels that you can't really see once the van's back together. If there's no sign of rust in there, I generally prefer to keep it as original as possible, just because this will be okay, but I expect it's probably going to not be quite right. Rather than fight getting replace the whole panel, I'd rather use as much original when it's sort of not got any rust issues. I've managed to get an off cut as well, so for the main bit of this panel where it's rusted on ours. So we'll be picking this apart and only using this top section here. It doesn't go quite as far back as I need it to, but on this bit here it's just a simple curve, so making a little infill piece up to where the rust's going to be should be relatively easy. It's just sort of pulling this apart, getting the bits off of it as well. And then so the first job will be to sort of pick this apart, get this plate off without damaging it as much as possible. Quite a few spot welds to sort of pick off and get off. So we'll do that first, and then when that's done, we can overlay it, see what extra we're going to have to do, and then we can start cutting then. So yeah, we'll get started. Right, so we're going to start off by taking the remnants of this wing off. I mean, originally it's the same as ours, it's a weld-on one. You can sort of see the tab where it sits here, and you can just about make out the dimple there, where there's a spot weld, maybe even two almost on top of each other, that we need to get off. The lip behind it is a bit crappy on ours, so if it's savable I'd like to save it. So I want to sort of, this is obviously destroyable, but the layer underneath you don't want to go through. So there's a couple of ways of dealing with spot welds. You've got the sort of spot weld drill bit. You can sort of see here it's got like the little dimple on the end. I mean, these are pretty good, but if you're good enough with a grinder, what you can usually do is, if the top layer is you don't need, you can then just grind down and sort of slowly work away, and then eventually you'll see a little ring appear, which is just as the spot weld pops. You do that, and then you just leave it apart. The spot weld comes apart. This bit goes in the bin, and the layer underneath will usually have minimal damage to it, whereas sort of the drill bits, where the spot welds aren't always completely straight, you'll have half the spot welds cracked on one side, and the other side you then have to lean in with a bit more of the drill, and you end up with you end up with a drill mark where you've drilled it. So I generally find it quicker and easier just to use the grinder, just because I've sort of used it for so many years. But if you're sort of perhaps a bit new to it, I'd probably stick to the drill, because you're less likely to go straight through, whereas with the grinder there is the chance you could sort of go too far. But if you know what you're doing, you're all right. Right, so I don't know if you can sort of, GoPro doesn't do close up very well, but you can almost sort of see the metal's just started to split around where the spot welds are. So that's when you sort of know you're sort of getting close. You don't really want to put too much pressure on. It was, as I said, there's two right on top of each other there. So at this point you can sort of usually lever it off, sort of work it a little bit. Obviously if you've got a lot more to do, then it takes a while longer, but this one is sort of only the two in this location. Right, so off in the bin with that. And as you can see, sort of, we've got remnants of the spot weld on top, which we can just clean up and take down, but it's material on top of the panel we need, not a case of you've gone through and taken a bit off. So a quick clean up with the grinder, and we've lost no material on this panel, but we've got the spot weld off. So I'll just give that a quick clean up. There we go, as you can see, nice clean bit of metal, still the same thickness it is from the factory, but no spot weld. As I said, that just makes it a whole lot easier, whereas if you drilled that you probably would have a dimple where you drilled through, sort of the size of the drill bit. So that's just sort of my method that I usually use, just because I find it a little bit easier. Right, so next bit to get off is this bit, sort of bit of the inner wing. It looks like you can see where it's lifted there, where it was bent over in the post, but I think there's possibly a spot weld there, and also just some kind of really sloppy like plug weld there. So again, this bit is shot anyway, so we'll grind that off and then grind through that as well, and hopefully leave this with nothing on top and okay to use. So another bit for the bin, and again you can see where the glorious wax oil that VWs feel like putting everywhere has all started to ooze out of that crease there. But you can sort of see the raised bit there where the plug weld was. There was another one there, which again you can see it's on the top surface as opposed to house having gone down into it, and there's just a little bit more. So I'll just sort of clean this all up now. Hopefully it's just surface rust, and then that'll be all clean with all those spot welds removed and no impact on the panel. Right, so yep, that's all done now. You can sort of see all cleaned up, nice bright metal, no real sign of there ever being anything spot welded to it there. On this lip you can sort of see the spot weld for this bracket for the bumper is held on. Unfortunately, they just make it out, there's a tiny little hole there and it gets a bit thin here. So what I'll probably do is end up sort of chopping it just past this bracket and sort of rebuilding an extra bit of the lip, because our one is sort of shot to about here. So I'll just fabricate a new lip piece up for there, but it's all nice and solid here. There's sort of where the old panel had sat, there was some rust here, but that's all cleaned up really nice, sort of, so that can go again. It's just where that lip was is obviously trapped dirt and a bit of moisture, so a little bit of lip there, but that, otherwise that's all good. Now this sort of looks worse underneath than it actually is, because it's off a white van. So now we need to get the remains of this outrigger off, which is the usual there. You can see the bungholio has got bigger than it should. So we're going to remove the remains of this, which again is sort of plug welded in multiple places. Which we'll have to sort of try and identify the dimples and then get them out. Right, so yeah, the piece we're actually going to be using, so it's this piece here, and then it sits on top of the chassis rail, runs along here. Now, you can see the spot welds from the top. You could drill them out, but with the spot weld drill bit, you end up with a sort of a bigger dimple than I like, sort of to when you come to plug weld this on later, because you're near the panel edge, sort of the heat you need to weld it to the thicker panel below. It's, by the time you've drilled that spot weld out, you're going to end up with a hole that's very close to the edge, and as you're plug welding it, you'll be able to fill it with weld, but it's going to want to blow through that little thin bit of metal there as you sort of build the heat up to actually stick to the thicker much thicker panel below. So ideally I want to get this panel off without having to drill any holes in it. So I think what's going to be easiest is if I cut down through here, just past here, then take this lip off. I can take this section of chassis rail off, which makes it a bit easier to do, and then I can get to them from the back and then just grind the spot welds on this lip here and remove this bit which we don't need from the bottom of the panel. And then I'll probably do the same with the outrigger remains as well, cut along there, remove the bulk of it off, and then I can get down in there with the grinder just to tease those plug welds off, and then hopefully this should just be sort of a nice flat section with no holes in it. So as you can see, we've cut just past the the gate's a bit thin there, but it's just where you've got this upright, struggling to get the grinder in there, but there's a little bit left. But that means we can now get to the back side of it and remove those plug welds a lot easier. And there's just another big old chunk of chassis rail in the bin. Right, so yeah, the next thing to do is cut as much of this away as possible so I can get better access, and then just start taking all these plug welds out. I want to try and possibly keep this bracket in the right place, because it's obviously a bumper hanger. Taking it off and getting it back in the right place it's always going to be a bit, with alignment it's just generally better to leave things in situ wherever possible. So I'm just going to try and leave that on there and clean it up as well as possible. And yeah, chop that out. More else to remove.
Where am I Monday? Oh, Billingshurst. Ow! Right,
So yeah, the bulk of it is now cut off. so we can get into there nicely. The grinder, there might be a few bits where it's just a bit of a struggle, so I'll just use the power file, a bit slower, but it does the same job and getting a little bit easier into these. It's a bit rusty, so it's going to be a bit of the spot weld, but they're all there. So get all these out, and then hopefully you should just be left with just that simple panel. As you can see, that bit's now just in the last one. That's just come off nicely. Sort of, you can see there's quite a few spot welds holding this up, and they're not really in a straight line either. Some are close to the edge and some are further in, but it's off. And as you can see, there's just a few little high rises where the little bits of spot weld left, but no actual damage to the panel below, which is what we want to keep. So quick go over just to remove the high standings, and that should be nice and flush, and we can go on to this bit, which was on this front edge here, was actually underneath it. So go through, remove this bit and then that bit, and then we should be all good. Right, so we got all the bits off we needed to, so nice flat, no real damage. There's a little bit here where it had lifted between the spot welds and corroded a little bit, so there is a very small bit where it's very thin. So what I'll probably do there is when I put it back on, is just drill that soft bit out and then use that as a point to plug weld it, because it is literally only a sort of, it's only a circle in a couple of mil diameter, so it's pretty small. But that's all come out without sort of any damage to the panel. Just done a quick clean up, just check here, but this is all just surface rust in here, so a good clean up and some rust treatment, and that'll be perfectly fine again. As I said, from the top, sort of no damage there, so that can go back in and sort of be used nicely, sort of brackets saved as well. So next job will be to sort of cut this out a bit so I can slot it in place, and then mark the back edge, see how far back it goes, then cut that whole section out. That should come out easy because I don't have to be too careful about the top layer because it's just been destroyed on the way out, and line that up. I imagine it's probably about an inch worth, an extra strip I'm going to have to put at the back where this isn't quite big enough, but we'll see next time. So start cutting it out and see what happens next time. And that entire video showing it taking all afternoon just to clean that panel up.
Always cut it carefully.